Any comment on these minutes or amendments that need to be made?
Chairman Smith, I move that we approve the minutes of the February 9th meeting.
Motion has been made to approve the February 9th, 2015 minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Excuse me. Was there any opposed? Did not hear any. All 5 ayes. Most minutes are approved. Tonight, we do have a public hearing to consider a minor land partition request from Jason Bristol to partition an existing 1.22 acre developed parcel located at 486 South Knott Street into 2 parcels. Therefore, I am going to read the public hearing format, which is our procedures for public hearings. The matter coming before the hearing body requires a public hearing. All interested persons in attendance shall be heard on the matter. If you wish to testify on this matter, please be prepared to step forward to the microphone at the appropriate time, state your name, mailing address, and interest in the matter. For those people other than the applicant that is interested in testifying as either a proponent or an opponent, please sign in on the sheet or speak up when we call for testimony. For longer presentations, proponents and opponents may buy time from one another. In doing so, those either in favor or opposed may allocate their time to a spokesperson who will represent the entire group. Your time may be limited for your presentation. Looks like tonight the applicant will have 15 minutes to speak. If any opponents show up, they would each be given 5 minutes each, and the applicant would then have 10 minutes for rebuttal. Questions must be directed through the chair. Any evidence to be considered must be submitted to the hearing body for public access and to become part of the record. All written testimony received both for and against prior to the hearing shall be summarized by staff and presented briefly to the hearing body during the staff report. Testimony and evidence must be directed toward the applicable review criteria contained as indicated in the staff report, the comprehensive plan, or the applicable land use regulations which the person believes apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue may preclude appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to the proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government to respond to the issue may preclude an action for damages in circuit court. Everyone present is encouraged to testify. Are there any conflicts of interest? Any of the commissioners have any conflicts of interest on this?
No.
Not seeing any conflicts. Have there been any ex parte contacts? Has any of the member of the Planning Commission had any ex parte contacts with anyone prior to this hearing, including a visit to the site about this matter? If so, please declare the nature and the extent of such ex parte contact at this time.
I have driven past the site.
Okay, one driven past the site. None others were noted. Is there any member of the public that has any questions for any commissioner regarding conflicts of interest or ex parte contacts? Not seeing any. Public hearing will be conducted as follows. First, we'll have a staff report. Then we'll have questions of the Planning Commission to staff. Then we will open it up for public testimony. The applicant will have not more than 15 minutes. Any other proponents or opponents would alternate with, or would take turns, 5 minutes each. And then we would have any neutrals and then a rebuttal by the applicant at the end. We would then close public testimony. We'll have any last questions by the planning commissioners to staff, and then we will move to discussion and deliberation amongst the Planning Commission. Then we will render a decision that may come a final decision tonight or may be written up at a later time for signature and final approval by the Planning Commission. Is there any questions about the procedure? Not seeing any. We will go to the planning staff report. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Chair Smith. Welcome tonight, Commissioners. This is a minor land partition, and it is a little bit different than some that we've had in that we're proposing to create 2 lots out of a tract that's 1.22 acres. And both of the resulting tracts will be currently developed. And that isn't the norm. Usually we're creating new lots to be developed. However, the applicant is proposing that parcel 2 of the proposed land partition would at some point in the future be redeveloped. And so this sets it up to be able to pursue that aspect on parcel 2. Laney, can you move those forward? Thank you. This kind of shows the layout, and we have parcel 1 being this small lot right here, and there's the new property line right here. And then everything that's, my thing just left. Gosh, I can't find it. There it is. Boy, it's coming and going. Where did we put the other one?
Here you go.
It's not staying on. Then everything else is what's remaining, and you have this existing gravel drive that not only goes to the front house that will be on its own parcel, but goes to the back and serves a house here. And do we have another slide that shows all of them? There we go. Then there's 2 more houses here, an outbuilding. So there's 3 different houses that this drive goes to serve in the back. And so this is the parcel that is likely to be redeveloped at some point in the future.
So
Both,
this is R2, correct?
it is R2, and
What about this one brings it, what are we, minimum lot size is what, 5,000?
no, there is no minimum lot size in the R2 district. There's merely a minimum density requirement.
Okay.
And so when this redevelops, that would be an issue for this tract. And as it is, it's moving in more conformity to the minimum density by creating a separate tract here. So we haven't worried about this site, whether it meets its requirement or not, since it's got an existing house on it in terms of minimum density. But there isn't any particular minimum lot size in the R2 district. Let's move on to the next slide. And one more, Laney. Yeah, do it without your mouse. There's nothing else I guess I want to talk about there. Okay, this slide here actually shows that the applicant is proposing a new driveway to parcel 1 off of the Knott Street. And so you have the existing drive serving the houses in the back over here, and then you have a new proposed curb cut and a new proposed driveway that would satisfy the 2 parking space requirement to serve this particular single-family home. And this would be required to be a paved driveway, as this new one is. And that will bring up another issue that's both an ordinance standard and involves the Canby Fire Department in related to this existing gravel drive, in that we have an ordinance that requires that you have a paved drive within 150 feet of the farthest point of the homes to be served in terms of fire trucks coming in. However, the Canby Fire Districts indicates that as far as they're concerned, it doesn't need to be paved. It just needs to be an all-weather surface that would withhold a 60,000-pound fire apparatus in all weather conditions. And they have actually, my understanding is they've actually visited this site before and utilized this gravel drive to get back to these houses. And my understanding is it's actually satisfactory to them as it is today without it having to be paved.
Question on that. All those extra houses in the back are already there, correct? Mm-hmm. And the gravel driveway's already there?
Right.
So there's not proposed to be any change to that whatsoever?
That's right.
Okay.
And so that's why this issue comes up, because the standard ordinance requirement is that you would pave this. So if these were all new and they were proposing this drive, it would be paved for the first 20 feet to keep gravel from going out on the street, and it would be paved most of the distance back here so that it's within 150 feet of the farthest point of these things. So I just wanted you to be aware of that's normal standard if you're building this new. That was one written input that we received was from the fire department related to that aspect. And then we also had input from Canby Utility, who indicated that they have an existing overhead electric line serving back to these homes and to this home. And with this new property boundary proposed here, they were thinking that a 12-foot wide utility easement split part on the new lot and part on the parcel 2 would be needed since we're now serving 2 properties to guarantee that electric service. I was just visiting with the applicant here before the meeting started, and this is not a condition that we've had in the staff report right now regarding satisfying his request for easements. We do have a kind of generic, I guess, condition number 2 that kind of addresses it. Actually, it's condition number 1. But I'm thinking that because of his future redevelopment thoughts on this tract, which aren't solidified yet, it may not be the best for him to have that existing overlying electric service in this location. So he may be able to work out an alternative way to serve these properties with electric service. And so it might be helpful if we gave him the flexibility in our condition to meet the electric service requirements for the 2 parcels in a manner satisfactory to Canby Utility. If we were to word a condition similar to that, then they can work that out if this is approved. And as long as Canby Utility is satisfied they're getting the easements they'll need, then I think that should be satisfactory to the Planning
Is
Commission.
it proposed, are both lots, as far as we know, in the same ownership? It's just making
they-
Canby Utility happy with.
They
that.
are.
May not be good to the parcel 2 owner if somebody else
Yeah.
owns that.
Yeah, they are now, but Canby Utility is thinking of it in terms of 2 separate parcels under 2 separate ownerships. And that's why they're asking for an easement to begin with. And that's how we need to be thinking of it in the Planning Commission, because immediately they can be sold once they're created as separate tax lots and partitioned that way. The other input that we've gotten is one written comment from Vivian Carpenter, and she says she has no objections to the proposal. However, she's very curious as to what the future proposal will be for parcel 2, indicating that there could be some changes anticipated for the back part where the existing homes are, and she indicates that would likely be for the better. I understand that the homes in the back are not in the best of shape. Let's see, was there one other input that we got was from our city engineer, and he indicated the other issue that we'll talk about a little bit more is standard requirement with a partition would be to provide sidewalks across the frontage of the entire frontage of this particular parcel. The applicant is proposing to put a sidewalk across parcel 1. However, he is requesting a waiver of the normal sidewalk requirement across parcel 2, primarily due to the fact that he does have long-term redevelopment plans in here, in this area, and he doesn't know exactly where he'll place his driveway. And so he may have to tear out part of that sidewalk if he was to put it in today. There is a need to add one, I'm trying to think if I wrote down where I could amend this. We did not address the fact that if a sidewalk is put in, as proposed on parcel 1, that we need to obtain a 12-foot sidewalk easement across the frontage on the private property. Even this map is showing that the sidewalk installation is off of the minuscule 40-foot of right-of-way. We might consider actually dedicating more right-of-way, but the entire length of Knott Street is already developed. I mean, this is redeveloping, and so we're not likely to ever get additional right-of-way on the other parcels, and so it'd be a much better solution to request a sidewalk easement on the private property, and we've done that quite frequently in order to accommodate a pedestrian sidewalk that will be on private property.
Ryan, are there existing sidewalks on either side of the parcel?
There are sidewalks on the other side of the street, pretty much the full length of the street. Laney got this so that you could see the sidewalk going along here. And then there's a sidewalk that's 2 properties to the north on the same side of the street, ending right here, with the property that we're looking at being, let's see, am I looking right? Is it starting right here? Yeah, I think it starts right here and heads down this way. And so there's the driveway coming in to this site now, to the house in the front that's staying. And then it goes under these trees to serve these back here. And there's a bend in the road about right here.
So there's no sidewalks, if I'm looking at this correctly, to the south. But there is north.
Yes, that's correct. And there's 2 properties in between it.
To the
And
south,
so,
north.
right, to the north even. But that, to staff, there's a logical extension of that, seeing sidewalks across this property, and then eventually the 2 lots that would be the gap north. And so it does make some sense to get the sidewalk started. And I think the applicant recognized that and volunteered to put the sidewalk in on parcel 1 because of that.
Okay.
And I think that's generally, we did recommend approval, subject to the conditions of approval in the staff report.
Other questions by any of the commissioners for staff?
I see you only have 7 feet on there, on the one side where the easement would be, between the house and,
That is the standard interior side yard setback is 7 feet. Is that how much it said on
Yeah.
there? So I get, and in a case like this, it's an existing house, and so if it didn't meet the 7 feet, it doesn't really matter.
I was
It's
thinking
already
that.
there and has been there, if it's on the north side there.
that's enough room for the 6-foot easement then by a foot, right? So that's okay?
Yeah, the easement would be out on the property line between parcel 1 and 2 is where the Canby Electric was proposing it, 6 foot on one side and 6 foot on the other.
Yeah, well, that's where the 7-foot is.
Yeah.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, let's hear from the applicant. Mr. Bristol?
All right. Well, good evening. There's a pretty good reason not to do the work on the frontage of parcel 2. So basically, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. I think Brian kind of illustrated for us what my objective is with parcel 1 is breaking off the house and selling the house. It's a quality house. makes a good single-family home for a family. But the rest of the property is underutilized and it needs to be redeveloped. So a lot of different options for the property being high density. The minimum requirement is 14 units per acre. So just on my property alone, there's about 15 units that I'm required to build up to. So the road that would actually be in there wouldn't be a driveway, it would be a paved access road. So the approach is different, it wouldn't have a concrete, I mean, I think it's all different. All the utilities would have to be brought back to the site. So any new improvements that we did to the frontage of parcel 2 would have to be all ripped out. And I just hate to see a waste of money, especially my money, when it's, you know, it's a short-term thing for me. I'm not getting any younger, so this is going to get done sooner than later. The other piece of it is, so my property's the chunk highlighted in the purple dashed. The red property, or the property highlighted in red there, is my mother's. So that's another acre. So adding the two together, which is the objective, would be about 30 homes minimum. And there's no limit, so it could be 100, is basically how you could look at it. And part of that, the challenge is if there's one access, there's a certain limit, I can't remember the numbers, but if there's two accesses, then the maximum number can actually increase. So it might be that one road comes in on Township and it goes all the way out through South Knott Street as a drive-through. So there's just a lot of different things that could happen on this property, and doing the frontage improvements on parcel 2 to create basically an island of sidewalk in the middle of South Knott Street, since nothing to the north or south has sidewalks. So we're basically creating an island of sidewalks for a couple years, and it'll all be ripped out.
Question for you.
Yes.
I don't think this necessarily impacts the decision today, but I'm just curious, how in the world do you think you would get 30 more lots like that on 2 acres?
Well, it's not lots like that. It's apartments, it's high density, so apartments, townhomes. It's,
So you're going to be limited to either apartments or townhomes on that lot, pretty much.
it,
To have 14 per acre.
yeah,
I don't know.
the other thing that I haven't had it drawn up yet, but they're very narrow lots, but the frontage, I guess they're called rear entry. So the garage is in the back, access from an alley, but all your front doors line up and you actually see your neighbors instead of their cars. So it's done over at Villa Boys. Is that how you say that?
Yeah, Villa Boys.
Yeah, and there's a new development up in Oregon City on top of the hill. I went and checked it out. The lot sizes are about 3,500 square feet, which in this case, you know, an acre's 43,560, so you might be getting there. It's something I'd like to explore before I just exit out. If you could flip the slides. So I took a few pictures just to show, I guess they're not the best pictures. The one on the left is the house, the frontage of the house that I want to keep. There's an existing large walnut tree in the front yard. And I want to put the parking pad to the right of it, so that big walnut tree will continue to stay there and be a part of the property. The top picture is the picture of the entrance to go back to the small houses. And then the bottom picture, bottom right, is you're standing back at the houses looking towards the road. So it's pretty much a straight stretch to get back there on the gravel. Next. Okay, so here's the houses. The 3 white houses are the homes on parcel 2. And the brown house is the home that faces Township. That's my mom's. So as you can see, these aren't homes that would be kept. They would be demolished and redeveloped. So that's pretty much the pretty much it. The one thing, I guess, on the power, I was going to tell you, the power for the existing house in parcel 1 is brought in overhead, and we only need at a minimum, we need the easement on both sides of the property line between parcel 1 and 2. The houses in the rear, I believe, are serviced from Locust Street. So it comes over on a pole, and then it drops down to the 3 individual houses.
Let me ask you, would you be opposed to a condition being added that said that for parcel 2, if the development isn't done in 10 years, then we'd have a non-remonstrance to require the sidewalks to be put in on parcel 2?
Yeah,
You'd be okay with that?
I'd be okay with that.
Any other questions for Mr. Bristol? Okay. Any opponents? Want to have a rebuttal?
I guess I did talk to Todd at the fire department about the access, and he felt comfortable with the access being how it is for safety. So I guess that would be part of what I'd request to be waived. And I don't mind doing parcel 2, if we wanted to do the sidewalk and street tree easement all the way across basically the whole frontage, both parcels. There's existing trees now, so I don't think there's a need to put more in at this point.
No, that looks pretty heavily forested.
It's pretty wet. It is.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. So that'll close the public input portion of the public hearing. Brent, I had one question. You wrote these up. If we do waive the 150-foot fire requirement and the street easement and the sidewalk easement, do your findings already take that into account, all of those ones?
They do not, because we actually recommended the street tree. Let me find the conditions here. Report. Condition 6 and 7 address the street tree issue. And what staff is recommending is exactly what Jason just proposed, is that we dedicate a sidewalk and tree easement 12-foot wide across the frontage of both parcels now, so it'll get on the partition plat and be there whether he redevelops or not. And if he does redevelop, hey, we've got those easements along the frontage in case we need it for the future redevelopment of it. But that we could certainly do away with the actual street tree requirement, because there's plenty of existing trees in the front yard.
Right.
And so I think the wording on 6 and 7 might need to be changed, or it does, because, I mean, we just had a standard requirement to require it. And then I'm trying to think exactly what your question was on,
Just how they, in order to get those things accomplished,
yeah.
what would need to be amended here?
Because that's, we'd have to amend at least condition 6, because it's requiring the street trees and paying the fee, and that's what I don't believe that we need to do because of the existing trees. And then I wanted to remind you that we needed a brand-new condition, and maybe it could substitute for condition 1 that requests the sidewalk easement, unless we're going to do it through 7 and make it a sidewalk and street tree easement. We could do that as well. I also wanted to point out one other thing, on condition number 4. Parcel one is showing record. Yeah, kind of condition 1 and 4 are very similar. I mean, and now we're talking about a specific utility easement that was requested. And so if we're going to try to address that need from Canby Utility, we could do it by altering either condition 1 or 4, or getting rid of both of those and writing a new condition dealing with the utility easement. And we don't need a shared access maintenance agreement. That was left over from a previous staff report. It doesn't apply here. They each have their own separate driveway, so we don't need a shared. I think that's all that I saw that needed
So I guess I'm
addressing.
confused as to, the first 7 requirements, actually, how many are left standing?
Yeah, so I'm saying 1 and 4, if we take care of Canby Utilities' requirement or request, aren't needed. And we don't need condition 6 if you choose to waive the street tree requirement. But I believe we still need 7 to get the street tree easement, especially across parcel 2 that's going to be redeveloped. And we still need condition 5.
It would seem to me that condition 4 could just be changed. It says, any utility easement to serve parcel 1 and parcel 2 shall be approved by Canby Utility and be shown on the recorded partition plat, and a shared access and maintenance agreement recorded with the plat.
That sounds good.
We don't necessarily have to have the details that Canby Utility required listed in the condition, just that utility is approved.
Actually, condition 1, now that I read it again, is a generalized catch-all that's in the code that talks about the applicant is taking responsibility, not the city, if there are any private easements necessary to protect lines that might cross the proposed property boundary, because we don't know exactly where the utilities are going to those existing houses, and they might end up crossing that line. And so it'd probably be good to keep number 1 in there. It's to put the applicant on alert that he doesn't have any private utility lateral lines crossing the new property boundary, because once they're sold separately, a neighbor could cut them and cause problems.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? Okay. I will make some comments first. I think that on number 2, we should consider amending number 2, and my personal opinion is that we require the sidewalks on parcel 1, which looks like a mostly be driveway, but they'd be constructed on sidewalk, on the sidewalk constructed on parcel 1, but then do the 10 years to have a non-remonstrance agreement for 10 years that if there's a development of parcel 2 during that time, it can be done in conjunction with whatever design they have. Otherwise, after 10 years from recordation, it would need to be constructed there. That would be what my thoughts would be. I'm dealing with that piece. The rest of it I would probably support.
You would support eliminating requirement 4?
Well, I think editing 4 so that to have would make more sense to me.
Any utility easement to serve parcel 1 and 2 shall be
Approved by
the
Canby
by
Utility
Canby Utility.
and shown on the recorded partition plat.
And you would keep number 1?
Brian thinks it was necessary for some sort of a notice requirement, sort of a as is, don't.
And that
It seems like
10-year
sort of stating the obvious to me on that one, so I don't have a problem with
Okay.
it.
that 10-year remonstrance, that would take care of the sidewalk easement too, wouldn't it?
So sidewalk
Go with it.
installation is required a minimum 36-inch
It's-
wide, clear path behind any mailboxes is required to meet ADA standards, but on parcel 2, we would have a required 10-year remonstrance that they must build sidewalk if it's not developed.
It was kind of like execute a non-remonstrance for parcel 2 if not constructed to require a sidewalk by the applicant if not constructed within 10 years.
Is that a remonstrance
that's
or
how
no
you-
remonstrance?
It's a non-remonstrance thing because it means the owner can't
Protest.
complain, yeah.
Yeah.
what they're required to
No
do.
complaining.
So that would take care of the sidewalk
Yeah,
easement too?
no, the
They
sidewalk
would have the
easement.
easement, but they'd just be required to construct it if 10 years from the date they record it, they haven't developed that parcel 2 and done something else with the sidewalk
The
part.
easement is different because we're building this public sidewalk on private property, so we need a pedestrian easement to invite the public onto the private property, kind of a liability kind of issue for the private property owner is really what it does. It protects, it serves the public and it protects the private property owner.
So do we have to
So.
write that in still?
Yeah, so, and the executed partition, when you approve it, they file a partition plat that's recorded, and it will show any easements that we indicate on it, so that they'll know that when they construct a sidewalk, it will be in that easement and, invites the public to walk on the private property.
Makes sense to me.
You ready?
Yeah, anybody, any other discussion or any motions or anything like that?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve file number MLP 15-02, a minor partition, with these conditions. On condition number 2, it should read, if a sidewalk installation is required, a minimum 36-inch wide clear path behind any mailboxes is required to meet ADA standards. But on parcel 2, it's required a non-remonstrance for 10 years, after which a sidewalk must be built. And then on condition number 4, any utility easement to serve parcel 1 and 2 shall be approved by Canby Utilities and shown on the partition plat and a shared access and maintenance agreement recorded with the plat, and elimination of condition number 6.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Second that.
Mr. Hensley seconds it. And I would add to that and see if it would move to amend that we direct staff to draft up findings showing that, those changes for next month if it's approved, because we don't have those changes in writing yet.
Very well.
Is there any discussion on that? Which one?
Number 5. So was there any discussion on number 5?
We're still on your motion, so right now, we're discussing your motion to approve.
I'm good with it.
And then I had moved to amend that. Mine hasn't been seconded yet.
I would second that.
Okay, so we just have a quick vote or discussion on my amendment to have staff write up new findings to reflect those changes for approval at the next meeting.
Perfectly fine. Makes
Okay.
sense.
Any objection to that? No? Okay, all five approve that. So then back to Mr. Savory's motion to approve with those amendments, and they'll be written up by staff in the interim, and we'll just,
Second sentence in number 5.
That's right.
wait,
That's in there.
I think we had well, I had
Yeah.
stated orally that I didn't think that they needed to pave 100 feet of that gravel driveway. Was that the sentiment too? Was there consensus on that?
I don't see there's any purpose in it.
Okay. So that sentence would be stricken off of those drafted findings? Is there any objection to that?
None.
None.
Okay. So with all those changes, is everyone in favor of having staff draft up those findings for final approval at the next
Yes.
meeting? Okay, so let's do those. So all are in favor of staff drafting up findings to approve this with those changes for final consideration next month?
All right.
Aye. Any none were opposed? All five in favor? Okay. Thank you. Okay. Any final decisions to sign?
We've got the originals here.
I like this really cool fancy paper.
Did anyone have any objections or anything that they noted on these ones that was any problematic? Okay, any other items of interest from staff? Regular staff report?
I don't really have anything tonight.
Okay, any items, agenda items from any of the planning commissioners? Topics of interest?
Street trees? Can we look at the street tree ordinance? Can we do that? Are we allowed to do that?
Who would be in favor of appointing Mr. Hensley as our official liaison to the city council to present to them the difficulty we're having with the street tree ordinance?
I would,
almost every one of these.
I would think that would be a spectacular idea.
Thank
Okay.
you, gentlemen.
Is there anyone that's opposed to us appointing Mr. Hensley as our liaison to present the city council with sort of a summary of the problems that have been caused by the street tree ordinance and approvals of these
I would
things?
be more than happy to do that.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
If you can take care of that. And I think, doing a survey sort of, there's been different problems over like the last 5 or 6, whether it's the carve-outs, whether it's what do you do if you're not requiring a new sidewalk instantaneously, what do you do with old trees, there's just a whole
There's too many-
plethora of,
I think there's too many things that are in play that weren't looked at when they decided we need trees here. This is a great example. I counted on the plat that we had. There's 20 trees on the property already. How many more do we need there? And then we're going to charge them a fee to make sure that they're there. Well, they're already there. Somebody already drew them on the thing. So I don't know. I think that just needs to be looked at again and see if there's some way to streamline it. I don't know if there is.
well, you're officially attempting to speak for the commission at
Excellent.
that,
Well, thank you.
voicing that it needs some correction to it, I think would be the statement of the commission. Anything else?
Mr. Chair, I move that we adjourn.
Okay, no more items on the business, and we are adjourned.
Thank you.